I am calling this Bay Village Historic District Commission public hearing to order at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, May 12th, 2026. Commissioners present are Dunwell, Douglas, Shea, and Nelson. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, including the March 29, 2023 legislation extending the suspension of these provisions until June 30th, 2027, we are conducting this meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the Bay Village Historic District Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform or email staff at bayvillageac@boston.gov. We will repeat these instructions throughout the meeting.
I don't see any hands raised, so we can continue on. So first on the agenda is the ratification of the February 10th, 2026 meeting minutes.
So may I start by asking if the commissioners have read the meeting minutes from February 10th? If so, say aye. I have.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
And can we accept the meeting minutes as presented? Say, those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the meeting minutes are accepted.
All right, great. And then moving up next, we have two items listed on design review. I see the applicant is here in the meeting with us. First on the agenda is 46 Fayette Street, and specifically this design review hearing that we're looking at is with the proposed scope of work to install mechanicals at rear with privacy screen, replace rusted metal panels at rear dormer, replace slate at rear roof, and replace the copper gutters. I see the applicant right now, and I will make them ask to unmute. Before we proceed, Alexsandr, I'm going to read the staff comments for the record and for the convenience of the commissioners. So staff with 46 Fayette recommends approval with the following provisos. So in regard to installing mechanicals at the rear with the privacy screen, we recommend approval with the proviso that this scope of work be remanded to staff for final proposed dimensions, ensuring minimal visibility. For the proposed scope of work to replace rusted metal panels at rear dormer, staff recommends replacing existing metal panels with real slate or synthetic slate. Staff would also be open to the commission approving wood siding or James Hardie siding. In regard to the scope of work to replace the slate at the rear roof, staff recommends replacing existing slate with synthetic slate or real slate. And in regard to replacing copper gutter, staff recommends replacing copper gutters in kind at the front facade, and at the rear, replace gutters with K-style aluminum gutters in dark brown color. For the convenience of the commissioners, I would be happy to repeat these staff comments throughout the hearing. And Alexsandr, if you may state your name and affiliation for the record.
Hello. Nice to meet you all. I'd like to represent 46 and 48. You explained everything right. We're looking for HVC condenser installation on a small roof on the second floor addition part of 46 Fayette with a screen to close the visual part of the condenser. First of all, we discussed about 3 condenser. We heard you and we decide to relocate 1 condenser on the ground, so it would be less than we asked in the beginning. Also about the roof. Yes. Yeah, I think next slide. Oh, yeah, this is part about the screening for HVC condenser, which we will install 2 pieces below. Yeah, could we screen, next slide? Yeah, this is like an example what we have around, same kind of condenser, which you could see on a left photo. Next slide, please. Roof repair. So we have a small dormer. It was covered by the, I don't know, some metal pieces. We need to replace it. So the idea was to make a shingles or do a clapboard, James Hardie. And we have around the dormer small part of the roof. We would like to ask you to install architectural shingles, which is on the right side of the slide. We have some example from our neighbors and also saw something similar to this. This is house 50, Fayette 50, and one of the example on Tremont Street. All other parts with the slate on a front dormer, and also what else? Gutter downspout. We will use natural copper and also natural slate to repair.
Yeah, and just a reminder, some of the mentioned things, such as the replacement of slate at the front, has been placed on administrative review. So that has already been placed on that section of the agenda. But if that does that conclude your presentation, Alexander, for 46 Fayette specifically?
Yes, 44. Yeah, 46 Fayette. Correct.
Great. And commissioners, if you have any questions or comments directed towards the applicant, please feel free to ask away.
Jackie, may I start by asking, are we going to separate the two addresses? So
We are.
So there's going to be a motion for
46 Fayette.
46, and then there'll be another motion for 48.
Yep, so this is only
Okay.
looking at 46 Fayette, and then after a motion has been made and a motion has been voted on, we'll look at 48 Fayette.
Okay. I do have a question. Would someone explain to me what is the Hardie product that's referenced?
Alexander, you can chime in, but Hardie board siding is a composite material that has been increasingly growing in popularity around the nation as a sort of environmentally more friendly way in replacement to timber or wood. It is a fiber cement material, to my understanding. The National Trust for Historic Preservation has published numerous articles and findings about this material in when being used on historic materials or historic properties, and they have seen it and deemed it, of course, case by case, but as an appropriate material, especially taken into consideration climate change and environmental challenges.
Thank you. I still need a little clarification, in particular on the dormers. If you could roll the slides back about 3 or 4 steps there. So you're proposing, like, hold on right there, please. So where the red arrows are, where currently there's the metal, is that proposed to be the shingle that we're seeing, or is it proposed to be Hardie, or is the shingle on top of the Hardie?
Yeah, sorry for confusion. Well, like first of all, when we work with this presentation, we ask to install the shingles on a back dormer and also for the roof. But we also heard the feedback from the historical department about the dormer, and for now I would like to ask you to install like a clapboard. It could be wood or James Hardie, which is usually probably the same, and for the roof I would like to ask you to install the shingles.
So it seems like, yeah, there's been a slight revision made since this presentation has been submitted. So rather than using this black asphalt to replace the metal rusted part of the dormer, the applicant is aligning with part of the staff comment to install either wood or James Hardie siding at this section right here that we'll see that's rusted. As for the existing shingles, the applicant is still asking to install this type of asphalt shingle. Hopefully that can provide more clarity, Steve.
Thank you.
But that is on the image, on the photograph, that's the top left.
Mhm.
And again, the roof in the bottom left, the roof, exactly where your cursor is, Jacqueline. That's a sloped roof. And staff comment is to replace that existing slate with synthetic slate or real slate, not shingles, correct?
Yep. And so, again, the applicant is asking for you to consider this asphalt shingle on the right-hand side. But again, the staff comment does deviate from what the applicant is asking for in this occasion.
We tried also find not some kind of compromise, but do as much we can to to follow the current character of the houses, but in the same time trying to do something which would be helpful on the future to maintain it and take care about it. So that's why we didn't do. We will follow with the frontage of the house with the same natural slate. It's a lot of work because it was not repaired for a long time from the previous owner. Big amount of work, and yeah, this is way how we would like to follow and would like to ask for permission.
Okay, I'm going to ask for the clarification one more time. Forgive me for being a little slow to pick up on this, but sticking with the view we see right here, in the top left box, you're looking at the existing slate roof, which is a sloped roof adjacent to the dormer. And as I understand it, your request is you would completely remove the slate and you would reinstall shingle. Is that what the proposal is?
Yes, correct, sir.
I see. And Jackie, has the staff already pretty much signed off on this or
No.
said this is a good idea?
No. Again, just want to reiterate. So, the applicant wants to move ahead, or not move ahead, but propose this asphalt shingle. But again, this proposal by the applicant does deviate from what staff has included within their staff comments. We are requesting that, or our recommendation for this sloped rear roof is to replace it in kind with either synthetic or real slate.
I thought I heard the opposite. Just now, I thought I heard that he wants to take all that slate and discard it and put shingle instead.
Yep, that's what the applicant wants to do. But again, the staff disagrees with that aspect of the proposal, but the applicant still wants to bring it forth to the commission. So that's why.
Maybe it's more clear now. Personally, I thought we were in favor of slate for slate or synthetic slate.
Yep.
But not to remove the slate and replace it with something else. I'll let other people speak to this point, but now I understand where we're at.
I also want to.
Are there other commissioners that want to comment on this?
I'm confused that the front slate dormer repair is missing from this. That's just administrative review?
Yep, because
And
that's
it's not
in-kind
here?
replacement.
Okay.
And then also, Reed, I do see that you have your hand raised. We're gonna hold off until public comment, and then we will let you speak. Just wanting to let you know, but I won't forget. So It seems right. So just to sort of synthesize everything that has just been discussed, this specific slide right here. The applicant wants to remove the existing slate and replace it with this asphalt shingle right here. And staff disagrees with this proposal, but is letting the applicant come forward for the commission to review this. But we suggest on a staff level to replace this, seeing that it's been deteriorated. We suggest for this to be replaced either in kind with slate or synthetic slate, which is what we see as a more appropriate material.
Okay.
So there's sort of three options that the commission can make on this particular scope of work.
Okay, one more
Okay.
clarification. The vertical surfaces of the dormer, which are currently that rusted metal, that might end up being the Hardie product. And if it was, is that just a smooth surface like a, like a plywood, kind of like a no texture surface, or is there some texture or something?
There are different variations of James Hardie. There are some that do include the sort of grain that we see that better replicates the wood material, and that's something that the commission, if they would like for the applicant to pursue James Hardie siding, is something that they could request for it to look a little bit closer to wood. James Hardie has been shown to be a pretty resilient material, and just in the general sort of construction field is being used because it is more resilient to just outdoor weather events.
Okay. Other commissioner comments? Jackie, is this the time to open it up for the neighborhood to
First,
speak?
we would have to make a motion, and then before the motion is voted on, then we would open it up to public comment.
Oh. Oh, okay. Well,
And
go ahead, Laura.
are we making a motion for each of these slides?
So the way I
or
would recommend it, and in which was written in the staff comments, is the general approval with provisos. And then each proviso, you could specify what kind of material you want to see. So, and again, I read out our staff comments that sort of organize it in that way. And I can also, if it helps the commissioners make a motion, I could go step by step on what was listed on this project for design review.
Okay. I'm going to suggest that we create a motion that addresses the multiple components at 46, and then when we get to 48, 48 is a little bit simpler, as I recall.
Yeah.
But some of the things are there's no contest about it. The copper gutters in the front, I think I'm in favor of that. It's consistent with the street, and so I would say yes to the copper gutters. The screen around the mechanicals sounds like a very good solution, and I'm in favor of that. The vertical surfaces on the dormer, Hardie sounds like it's okay. I personally prefer it to have some texture to it. If there's a ribbed version or something, that would be my preference. Others might say differently. And then finally, on the incline rear slate, I'm in favor of slate or synthetic slate as opposed to the tile.
Steve, it looks like you made I mean, that was a really good motion. And also, just for the way in which we're organizing this hearing, this is going to be separate from 48. So we do have to make a motion, second it, vote on it for us to then continue on to 48. But
so we're going to make a motion. We're going to make a motion for 46. It covers all those components.
Yep.
The neighbors will comment because their hands are up. We're going to listen to them, and then we vote. Is that correct?
Exactly. And for the commissioners, I can reiterate what Steve said if we need a reminder. But I do need a second from Steve's motion.
I'm happy to second, and I believe it was very clear what Steve proposed. And Steve, thank you for asking for clarification in terms of what our options are. And Jacqueline, your explanation was equally very helpful. Thank you both.
Okay, great. We're going to move to public comment. Let me reshare my screen. So I know there were a couple of hands raised, and before we do that, I do want to let the commissioners know that we did submit also written comment. But Steve, if you can read the script, and then I will first read the written comment, and then I will allow for the public here 2 minutes to put their comment on the record.
Very good. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and to provide public comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you're calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your messages to staff via email at bayvillageac@boston.gov.
Great. And first, I'm going to start with the submitted written comment that we received on April 9th, 2026, from multiple residents on Fayette Street. And I will just list out the members' last names. So that's the Perizzolo family, the Sampang family, the Foley family, the Crowley family, and the Whitman family. They all submitted one signed public comment, and that was saying, as residents of Fayette Street, we think the application to replace the copper gutters at both addresses with K-style aluminum gutters should be rejected. Again, just the commission, for the commission's sake, that has been altered since this was first written. Each building on Fayette Street, from Church to marginal streets, all have copper gutters. Nearly all of the buildings in Bay Village have copper gutters as well. It would not be in keeping with the character of the street or Bay Village to install anything other than copper gutters. Additionally, one neighbor, John Shope, was required during a renovation to keep his copper gutters. The Historic Commission has had a practice of requiring copper gutter and downspouts. While copper is expensive now, that has been true at various times in the past, but the Commission has nonetheless continued to require it because that is what the historic material was used in Bay Village. We as neighbors do not object to the K-style aluminum gutters on the rear of the buildings. The other aspects application raised no other objections from us as long as the repairs maintain the aesthetic integrity of Bay Village. So that was placed on the record. I'm going to start with Reed Whitman. I'm going to unmute you, and then you have 2 minutes to say your comment. So you are now unmuted, Reed.
Hello. So my name is Reed Whitman. I'm the owner of 44 Fayette, and just wanted to give my comments. So slate on the front, copper on the front. I agree with K-style gutters in the back. I'm fine with slate on the back would be my preference, or synthetic slate as per the Historic Commission's recommendation. Hardie board with texture to enclose what was the rusted dormer. I'm in favor of the roofing material. My argument would be to put EPDM roof, which is rubberized roof, which is what's currently there, and that might actually be cheaper than shingle. And my preference is not to locate mechanicals on the second floor roof because there are none there today. It's visible from a public way. It would impede our view, not only from our backyard, but also from our back windows. It was also not included in the original plans, and there's a reason for the backyard. So
Great. Thank you, Reed.
thank you.
Chris, if you can state your name, and then you have 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Chris Gaudu. I'm owner of 50 Fayette Street with my wife, Lisa Pirozzolo. I would be in support of Reed's comments on 46 Fayette. I was when we submitted the written statement, it was unclear to me that they were replacing the rear slate with asphalt. We would be against that and would support the original slate or the other method of slate that was recommended. I would also say that support Reed's comments on what's going on at 46. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Awesome. Well, seeing that public comment has been made, a motion has been made. Steve, if you would like to open it up for a vote.
Yeah, before I do that, I just want to quickly clarify that although I did not enumerate this, the proposal includes the K-style gutter in the rear as
Mhm.
being an acceptable compromise as proposed in the staff comments. Is this, should we vote on this as is?
Laura?
I have I'm asking for clarification on the gutters as well at 46. Steve, was your motion to approve copper gutters on the front while K-style aluminum gutters in a dark brown color on the rear?
Yes, which is consistent with the staff comment.
Thank you.
And I should clarify too that we are approving a mechanical device on the rear roof with a sort of a screen around it, even though the neighbors had said they were hoping that that would not happen.
I have a question of clarification from for Alexsandr. Your slides say 3 condensers on the rooftop, but in your presentation you said you had reduced that to 2
Correct.
on the rooftop and 1 on the ground?
So probably on the ground it will go 2 and 2 on top of additional part on the second floor. Yeah. First of all, the plan was to install 3, but we try to do our best to cut down the numbers of the condenser because it will take some space and make as less as possible.
And Alexsandr, in your presentation, you said the condensers won't be visible behind the vet clinic when looking from the intersection, but are they visible from the abutters' homes?
Yeah, probably yes.
But we only take into account what's visible from a public way, right? So, unfortunately, when it comes to the visibility at the rear inside of a property, that's not something that we can fully take into consideration, but is something that can be taken into consideration with public comment. And then Chris, I know you raised your hand again, and then you still had time left, so I'm gonna unmute you for me to add one more additional comment.
Oh, sorry, I must have mistakenly raised my hand. But
Okay, no worries.
I would comment that I'm unclear of where these mechanicals are located, but I would have a hard time believing they're not visible from a public way on Marginal Street or Tremont at the corner of Tremont and Marginal. I have not, I arrived late at the meeting and did not see the slides of where the mechanicals are going to be. So I apologize for that.
Chris,
Thank you,
can I
Chris.
clarify that the place where the mechanicals are going is visible from, if you're at the intersection looking over the roof of the veterinary building or their little parking lot, and the applicant proposes to put a screen to make them like less visible. And since, quite frankly, several other buildings on the street have mechanicals on their roofs, it seems like they're asking for something that their neighbors already have.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my comment am I still unmuted, or am
No,
I?
you're unmuted.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess my only comment, and I apologize, 'cause I really did not see the mechanical stuff, but most mechanicals are on the top floor of all buildings.
Mhm.
Is this a suggestion to put on the top floor of the lower part of 46 Fayette that juts out? If it's on the top, that's a different matter, but I can see how the bottom might be a little more upsetting to read and neighbors.
Okay, Chris. So we're just gonna show you just for this, but kind of have to move a little quickly for the sake of
Yeah,
time.
I apologize.
No worries. You came late and we just want to make sure the public are informed. So originally within the mock-ups, it was very visible from Tremont Street with the proposed location being almost on what we would consider the L of this property. Staff devised a sort of technique, which is to create a privacy screen, which is very common in other districts such as the South End Landmark District, and where you know, property owners, if they do have an L, which does exist on this property, can place their mechanicals. This privacy screen actually does have a historical accuracy. This configuration of the wood clapboards as a privacy screen was used originally for laundry. So homeowners would actually place these privacy screens to dry their undergarments and hide it from the public, which is a very fascinating part. But it's something that we're also proposing that has like a historical accuracy of what we would see in the 19th century.
Do you have a slide for showing that type of privacy screen?
Yep.
Was there a slide?
I think that it's right on my. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I shared the wrong thing. It's a penguin.
It's a penguin.
Here it is.
It was adorable, something
Thank
different
you.
for
I
a change.
appreciate it. Here it is. And so again, within the proviso, we'll be working with the applicant, in which is suggested to find a configuration that still respects the sort of height and length of that.
Yeah, I'd just like to emphasize that we want the mechanical thing and the screen thing to be as small as possible and
Yep.
as minimally obtrusive as possible. This is the screen we're looking at here seems a little bit larger than what I thought we were going to get, but since it's going to be remanded to staff for a review of the actual screen thing, we can simply ask that it be kept to a minimum. Can't we do that?
Yes, we absolutely can. And that could be an amendment to the motion. And so if you just
Please
say
do that. Please do
amendment
that.
to the motion, and if it's seconded, it'll be added.
Seconded.
Okay.
I have a question for the owner. If your presentation said you would have 3 condensers on the L rooftop, and you've changed that to 2 on the L rooftop and 1 on the ground. Is it possible to have all 3 on the ground and none on top of the L?
So we have a small backyard. So if we will install all 4, we will kill all open space.
You're talking about 4. So far, I've only heard about 3.
No, it was 3. I'm gonna say it was 3. I think Alexander maybe right, Alexander. It was 3 that we
So
were discussing.
we have at this house 4 units. So technically
Okay.
we need to install 4 condensers. So first of all, when we send our presentation, the idea was install 3 on the roof and 1 on the ground.
Yes.
But for now, we have 2 on the ground and 2 on the top of this roof.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
So it's 2 and 2.
Like, yeah, 2 and 2. So we right now with these 2 condensers which go on the ground probably will kill half of the open space.
Okay, thanks. And then I'm gonna take Reed, just because you didn't fill up the 2 minutes, I'm gonna take one more public comment and then we have to move forward with the next application. So Reed, you've been unmuted.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so couple things. One is noise. Not sure if that's how noisy they will be, and obviously that affects us because we're neighbors. Second is there's an egress from our building from a fire escape, so I would want to make sure that it wasn't blocking that. Obviously, we are not in a favor of it and would prefer the condensers to be hung off the back or this or something to that effect. But understand that and or put them on the top of their building with a privacy screen so that it's not visible from our building or from our backyard. So that is our comments. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, is there further comment on this, on our proposed motion?
I have no further comment.
Okay, I want to make one quick observation. The fire safety aspect is absolutely important, but it is the province of the fire department and their rules. They have a very thick book of rules. So there's that. And the sound part is not part of our purview. So even though it's a significant factor to a neighbor, we cannot actually take that into account. It's just not something that we can do. Can I get a second for the motion that has been proposed with the proviso that the mechanical be as inconspicuous as possible, as reviewed by staff.
Second.
Go ahead, Greg.
Okay, can we go ahead and vote on this? All commissioners in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Steve, I need you to read your motion again.
Okey doke, I'll do it. So we would align with the staff comments on this and propose that the gutters on the front be copper. That the gutters in the back are allowed to be the K metal painted brown. That the screen behind the mechanicals is allowed with the understanding that the staff will review the materials and that the intention is to keep it as small and as minimal as possible. The vertical surfaces of the dormer, we propose or would approve the Hardie material and suggest that it have a texture to it if that is appropriate, something that suggests what was there before, and that the inclined roof be either slate or synthetic slate.
Thank you.
Okay, so we do have a second. So
Okay, so all in favor? That would
Aye.
include me. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion's approved.
great.
Next, we'll move on to the number 48, which has a lot of similarity. Thank you all.
Great. So 48 Fayette, again, replace existing synthetic slate at rear roof, replace wood at front dormer with James Hardie plank siding, and replace copper gutters. And then everything has disappeared from my screen, but I am pulling up the staff comment. So for 48 Fayette, again, similar sort of outline and organization method to that. This is a smaller application package that we're looking at that is currently listed on design review. So staff recommends approval with the following proviso. In regard to replacing existing synthetic slate, staff recommends replacing it with synthetic slate or real slate. In regard to replacing wood at front dormer with James Hardie plank siding, staff recommends approving the use of James Hardie plank siding here, ensuring that it matches the existing elements of the wood. So again, that sort of grain that we'll see that is characteristic of natural wood. And then in regard to replacing the copper gutter, staff recommends replacing copper gutters in kind at the front, and at the rear, replace gutter with K-style aluminum gutters in the dark brown color. And I am going to bring up the presentation for that scope of work.
Jackie, what about mechanicals at 48?
No mechanicals were included in this application package for 48.
Okay, where'd they go?
That is out of my
On the
question.
on the ground.
On the ground. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Okay, Alexander, it's your turn.
So
Let me share my screen really quick.
yeah, my colleague Adelia will represent and give a couple of words about 48 Fayette.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adelia Usmanova. I work with Alex on this project. So for 48 Fayette, our suggestion is to replace existing slate, synthetic asbestos slate with asphalt shingles. We believe that this really matches the honestly direct neighbors, and we see asphalt shingles used for dormers in the neighborhood as well. So this is about the rear dormer. Then the front dormer, this is existing wood that's deteriorated, and we suggest using James Hardie plank siding there. And honestly, it would look exactly the same because from this distance and at this height, you can't really tell the difference between wood and James Hardie. And it's the same situation with gutters as at 46 Fayette. We suggest replacing copper gutters with new in the front and replacing the old copper gutters in the rear with new aluminum gutters. We're ready to answer any questions.
Can we go back to the image that shows the rear the rear dormer and the area where currently you have slate, right? The arrow points to 48 Fayette. 48 Fayette, it's on the right. We're looking at slate, n'est-ce pas?
It is asbestos slate, I believe.
Yep, that is existing slate, and similar to the project, the application that we last heard, they have existing slate, and they want to propose it with the 3-tab shingle that is seen
Yeah.
here, the asphalt shingles. Again, our staff comment deviates where we are recommending slate, real slate or synthetic slate.
Okay, I feel like the answer would be the same as what we discussed at number 46. Although the slope is different. This is more like a kind of a mansard situation. It's sort of tilted a
Like
little
a
bit out of
dormer
vertical.
shed.
May I add a couple of words? So yeah, this is probably like a previous owner. Maybe it was drawing up the wall. It's one line with a back wall. We have on the back on this part like 4 windows. It's pretty like a big space for the windows, and this one, how we call it right now, slate, it's probably was a synthetic. In my concern, it was done from asbestos. Some of them was damaged, and we ask you for the shingles because we like right on the left door roof. You could see on the left picture, it's like our neighbor's dormer. So our idea was just to follow with this line, and it would looks like a similar on one, I don't know.
And because they're exactly adjacent and like it looks basically like one dormer. Because
So the look of the exterior would be.
I understand that the number 50 has shingle,
Correct.
right? And 48 has probably synthetic slate. I think you said that it was deteriorated in some way. I'm going to ask for other commissioners to comment on this. What do you think, Laura?
I just don't know. Is it at all sloped or is it completely vertical? Is it?
It's a completed vertical.
Okay.
Steve, I agree with the comment you made earlier, which is that my inclination would be to make the same recommendations as we did on 46.
Yeah, my thinking is that it's the same discussion in a way, even though the pitch is different, but the situation is the same. We have slate and we like to keep slate.
And again, the staff comments were pretty much in line with
Yeah.
the last one. So nonetheless, we needed to bring this to design review just in case.
Okay. So if I were to summarize, if we simply agreed with everything in the staff review, design review, that would keep the slate, or it would be repaired with a synthetic slate or something like that. So we could actually walk right down through the staff.
Sir, may I ask you a question? Just like for my understanding, I understand the situation how the historical board consider all houses like individually, or maybe something could change like on a time. But for my understanding, we like on a Bay Village we have a lot of shingles, roof, dormers, and I just like wondering if you could share with me why some of them could install it and why someone could not install. Just maybe I will get some.
Alexander, I could provide more clarity. I haven't looked into the application history of 50 Fayette, but sometimes before this district was even created as a historic district, there were already major alterations made to many roofs and many dormers. And as a result, the natural and existing shingle or slate that was once there has been lost. So ever since the district has been created, if typically when we see that there's asphalt shingle that's already existed, we would approach that in a different manner. But seeing that this dormer does have existing slate, it is treated differently as, something that has already lost the slate material that was once there.
Okay, well, it's I'm not talking about the 50 Fayette, I'm talking in general because we have a lot, but I get.
Just to clarify, we have guidelines that we refer to for our decisions, and one of those specifies that slate would be replaced with slate or with artificial slate. So the option to take the slate away and replace it with shingle would actually be outside of our existing guidelines. And as Jackie had said on that, it seems sometimes a little bit hard to understand, but that is the way the guidelines have been set up.
Yep.
Are there other comments? Chris?
Oh, that's public comment. We're gonna
Okay,
wait
right,
until-
okay,
yeah.
forgot about that. Okay, so may I propose a motion, which would be to align with the staff comments on number 48 Fayette, specifically to replace the synthetic, in the rear, this slate with synthetic slate or real slate. Furthermore, to replace the front gutters with copper, the back gutters with K aluminum painted brown, and to allow the front dormer repair using the Hardie material as discussed.
I second Steve's
Great.
motion.
So we are going to go to public comment. And then, Steve, if you can read that script for us.
I will. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. And if you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at bayvillageac@boston.gov.
Great. And just for the record, the public comment, the written public comment that I read aloud for the previous application also applies to this application. So for the sake of time, if you need me to reread it, I can, but for the sake of time, I will assume that everyone has absorbed those comments. We do have a raised hand, which is Chris. So Chris, you have 2 minutes.
I'm only going to need 12 seconds. I would just say to Alex, I mean, I just went outside, looked at the back of the mouse. I was now for the first time aware that there was shingles on there. So I've lived in the house for 23 years. That was done way before we moved in. So I don't even know why that happened and historically how that came about. But I would support same with same.
Great. Thank you, Chris. So we have read public comment and taken public comment. There has been a seconded motion, and then up next would be a vote.
Okay, so all in favor of the proposal as presented, say aye.
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 Okay.
In favor of your motion,
Yes, in favor of the
Yes.
motion, correct.
yes,
Great.
aye.
Well,
The motion is passed.
thank you. So that concludes our design review. Alexsandr and Adelia, thank you so much for working with us. I will contact you tomorrow regarding next steps. But again, thank you again for willing to work with us and coming today and presenting in front of the commission.
Thank you.
Great. So up next is administrative review. Again, these applications have met the eligibility criteria and all applicable guidelines, hence why they were placed on administrative review. Give me 1 second. Great. So first on the agenda on administrative review was 7 Fayette Street. So this was to remove a non-original front entrance door and essentially replace it with a wood mahogany door, matching existing panel arrangement color and installing new brass hardware. The door knocker and door number is to be reused. So again, seeing that's in kind, we're seeing a non-original door and a wood replacement that sort of takes an effort to not deviate too much from what's currently existing. This is placed on administrative review. And then again, as I've mentioned, for 46 and 48 Fayette Street, there were different components within their application that we had to place on design review and others that already met the eligibility criteria. So for 46 Fayette, they propose to repair the front slate dormer in kind with natural slate pieces, install an intercom system in a minimally visible area at entryway, repair the front entrance in kind, replacing and refurbishing hardware elements, and replacing the light fixture in kind. So again, these are the existing elements you see here in the middle. There's some work to be done, but again, the proposed work that was placed on administrative review does fall in line with our regulatory standards. Moving next to 48 Fayette, sort of same thing, replace the existing slate at front with natural slate pieces, repair entrance in kind, replace and refurbish hardware elements in kind, and replace the lighting fixture with a light fixture in kind. Moving next is 20 Shawmut Street. So at the front, replace two.
Hi.
Yes.
I have a question about the 46 Fayette, the built-in mailboxes and built-in and the Wise video doorbells.
So the mailboxes,
Yeah.
last correspondence I had with the applicants was that they just decided to keep it.
Okay.
The mailboxes that were there.
Yep.
It's really hard to, with USPS to coordinate something that respects the regulatory standards of the district and also looks aesthetically pleasing.
Yes.
And so with the doorbell system, the intercom, it is very minimally invasive. It's very small, typically smaller than what we'll see with typical sort of older intercom systems. So that's why we felt that it was minimally visible and acceptable.
But in the in the slide, one of the bullet points is install Wise video doorbells instead of the old intercom doorbells and a Wise deadbolt lock. Are those allowed?
Yep.
Under our guidelines?
Yeah, they're small intercom systems. We interpret it as an intercom system just to keep up with modern day. They're essentially a Ring camera. And there are multiple of those around the district. So we're just, taking that as an intercom system and a replacement of it.
Including a Wise deadbolt lock?
So that's just like a deadbolt lock, a hardware system that again is a modern one where you just put in the keypad and again, when we saw the specs, it was minimally intrusive to what's existing.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Up next is 20 Shawmut Street. So we have 2 basement windows here that are going to be replaced in kind, matching the existing panel configuration. It's a little hard to tell, but it's really just 6 panels. I can't even say it's a 6/6. It's just 6 panels that exist there because it's almost a basement level window. And then at the front entrance, they're restoring existing entrance by repainting sort of this area in kind with white. It just needs a little bit of a paint job, and then replacing the hardware in kind. Okay. After this, we have 31 Winchester Street. These were 2 proposals that have separate applications, but yet again meets the criteria. So this is to replace 4 non-original windows and replace with 6/6 aluminum clad windows matching existing color. So you'll see here at the second level, and there's also a little funky side window here that is going to be replaced. Again,
So they'll be 6/6. Is that the idea?
Yep. Currently 6/6 will be replaced to be 6/6. And then for the other application, just to replace the existing front entry door and transom with new in-kind wood door and transom assembly to match existing conditions in design, dimensions, color, and configuration. So nothing will be changing. It's simply just repairing sort of deteriorated elements that's making, obviously after winter, drafty, cold, sort of colds going into the home, existing brass door hardware to be retained and reinstalled, repair and refinish existing wood entry steps and surrounding wood elements in kind, basically maintaining the existing profiles and detailing.
Yeah, that building has a metal security gate at the entry. Is that staying?
Yep.
Okay.
And that concludes administrative review. So if there are no questions, then it is ready for.
Do we need to vote to approve your administrative review set?
Yeah, so typically you would just say, I approve the administrative review items.
Okay, would someone else propose? I'm tired of proposing. So
I propose a motion that we accept the administrative review of.
You don't have to list them out.
List them out. Yeah, I
don't have
couldn't
to,
remember.
yeah.
7 Fayette. I propose a motion that we approve the administrative review items as explained by staff.
very good. All in favor?
Second.
A second. We
There
got a
is a second needed.
Yep.
We got it. All in favor, say aye.
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 It's unanimous. The reviews are accepted. Jackie, what next?
Just staff updates, and wanted to report that we don't have any at the moment. Just happy to see everyone again after 3 months. I think we'll have a little uptick in applications, seeing that summer's coming around and people are realizing that after a very harsh winter that things need to be replaced and repaired. So hopefully we'll be seeing each other.
Is a question for commissioners. Is Seenam still a commissioner for Bay Village?
Currently.
Currently, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
So not hearing any other questions, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
We're
Aye.
good. Thank you
Great,
very much.
thank
you.
you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Becky.
Okay, bye-bye.